Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening and welcome to 2024 elections. My vote, my choice. We're entering that penultimate week. Yes, penultimate week. We are 9 days away from the 2024 elections, which will be, of course, one of the most hotly contested polls here in South Africa. Many new parties have been, of course, launched ahead of this elections. Many new parties, but familiar faces, and one of them is the Allied Movement for Change. Of course, it is a party that envisions a South Africa where collective power of its people drives a positive change. It has been started by former NFP member, that's Ahmed Munzoor Shaik Emam, and he joins me in studio. Mr. Munzoor, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and Jazakallah so much for joining us.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good evening as well to our viewers out there, and shukran for having me on the air.
It's an absolute pleasure. Mr. Munzoor, before we start off, of course, looking ahead to AM4C and its challenge for the elections, you, of course, when you were with the NFP, one of the biggest drivers, you, along with the EFF, put the motion of to have the Israeli embassy removed. ICC charges have been issued to Benjamin Netanyahu and I just want to get your reaction to it in 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, yes, I've been the founding member of
Mm,
the National Freedom Party
mm,
together with my former leader, Zanele Kamagwaza Msibi. And in fact, I gave the party its name. And we started with a bang, of course, 227 councillors, mayors,
mm,
deputy mayors, speakers. We won many municipalities outright. Zululand district we governed as well. Unfortunately, my former president took ill in 2014, but more importantly, in 2016, we were sabotaged despite an assurance from the treasurer he had paid the registration. He deliberately did not pay the registration. That's when the turmoil in the NFP started. Division, factionalism continues up to today. They're in court again tomorrow, I'm told. That is what has been happening. But I, have being the only Indian and being in a predominantly KZN Zulu party, I've had a whole lot of attacks on me because of my race. In fact, there's a post that was put on social media which says the ANC's got Praveen Gordhan, the IFP's got Naren Singh, we've got Shaik Imam. How long are we going to allow these Indians in our black party, despite the fact that I contributed immensely? And so because of the infighting and the factionalism that has gone on, there's been a call from members of the NFP that we need Plan B. So many of them, the deputy president of the NFP has also joined me. She's my premier candidate in KZN. I can tell you without any doubt that had Zanele Magwaza been alive today, she would never allow Sheikh Imam to leave, and she would never allow anybody to come between her and me. This was like a mother and son relationship with it. We had a lot of respect for each other, and she valued and appreciated the work I've done.
I actually asked you about the Israeli,
Right, now
the
coming back
ICC.
onto the
Yes,
issue,
yes,
yes,
yeah.
I see what the judgment is. Very unfortunate that they also calling for the arrest, of course, of the Hamas leaders as well. But I think, first of all, I think we must understand these bodies are bodies that are controlled by certain countries. These arrests are not going to take place. That's my view, my personal view, and the view of the Allied Movement for Change. Certain countries have these veto powers. That is where it's going to go to. This particular court does not have the power to implement this right now. It's very unfortunate. While we welcome the arrest, particularly of Netanyahu, and there is no doubt he is guilty, of genocide. I think the unfortunate thing is this, that also an attack on the Hamas leaders. But I think we need to understand, and many people fail to do this. When did this oppression and genocide of the Palestinian people start? Not on the 7th of October. So this attack on Hamas that I hear again and again is unfair. How long must anybody sit back and watch your mothers, your fathers, your children, your brothers, your neighbors being massacred? How long? How much can you take? Are we not all human beings that feel the pain and suffering of our fellow people? How long can you allow people to come in there, take over your land, take over your homes? You've heard stories of people, they cannot even go to work and come back home without leaving anybody. When you come back, somebody has taken over your home. Now tell me, atrocities of this nature, are we expecting organizations like Hamas and others to just sit back and allow the violation of your human rights? In fact, Every human being that upholds human rights all over the world should be feeling the pain and suffering of those Palestinian people. Because if we don't do something about it, South Africa and Cape Town would also become a Palestine. It'll go all over the world. So I think, what kind of human beings are we that we don't feel the pain? And then you get a leader from the DA who makes a statement. One person's genocide is another person's freedom. A despicable statement of that nature. So whilst we do welcome this decision, we know it's not going to get anywhere. But of course, we'll have to put more pressure. And the issue of the Hamas leaders that's been called, I think the UN is clearly indicating that they're not impartial, they're not objective enough. They need to look at why did what happen, why was that attack, what prompted, how long has it been going on, you understand, and place themselves in the position of those Hamas leaders. What would you do if your mother and father and everybody else is having their rights violated?
Mr. Munzoor, you answered my first question, well, the second question I was about to ask. Now, you've given it in your first answer, of course, about the attacks on minorities. You mentioned that obviously in your manifesto when you launched Allied Movement for Change. Now, it is a party that is new on the ballot paper. You're contesting predominantly Muslim parties in Al Jama and obviously the San Party. Allied Movement for Change is not predominantly Muslim. I'm assuming there are various non-Muslims that are part of your members list. Am I right?
All right. What is very clear is that the Allied Movement for Change is not a Muslim party, but it is a party which is based on the principles and ethos, Islamic principles, Islamic ethos, Islamic morals, Islamic values. Number one. So we want to serve everybody, but more importantly is to get people to understand what we are about, what Islam is about, embrace them, bring them closer together. So when they see the way we conduct ourselves and they part and parcel of that, okay, you'll bring them closer and they'll get a better understanding. If you heard what President Putin is saying, he's not Muslim. Of course, I've heard the other day that his wife is perhaps Muslim. I don't know, but I'll have to ask him personally.
Allah knows best, yes.
Yes, Allah knows best. But what is he saying? Islamic financing system. He is actually encouraging our women to dress Islamically and hijab. President Putin. And that is what we want to do, is to get the people. So we've got pastors, we've got all different religious groupings that are part. But one thing is very important. We will maintain the Islamic ethos and principles in the Allied Movement. That is not open for discussion. And I know some leaders have always said, and that's what I believe in. You get Muslim leaders or Muslim countries, and you get Islamic countries. And we are saying we operate on Islamic ethos and principles.
Mr. Munzoor, you, of course, have been a member of parliament for quite some time, and you've now launched this party. How much of that experience are you bringing in terms of this new party in trying to challenge for a seat within the National Assembly?
Well, first of all, you know, Parliament has about 42 departments, 42 different portfolio committees and standing committees.
And you've served in quite
and
a number
I've
of
served
those.
on quite a few of them,
Yeah.
but very importantly, I've debated every one. And like I've said before, there are times when I'll be participating in 4 meetings at the same time with 4 different devices. So I know and understand where the weaknesses are, where the strengths are, where the challenges are, where the solutions are. And we've given some simple solutions to some of the problems. And if you like, I can highlight them, but it's very important. I'm not here to talk about the weaknesses, but together with the weaknesses, I want to say what the solutions. There are short-term solutions, there are medium-term and long-term, but there are some very simple solutions to some of the major crises we have in the country, which we can bring to an end right now and improve the quality of life and the services we deliver to the people.
Mr. Munzoor, many of the new parties, many of the older guard, the election campaign, there's always been a hint of attacking the ruling party, and I would like to think there's justification for it, given that there is unhappiness with many of the citizens of our country at the rule over the last 30 years. As AM4C, how do you strike the balance of criticizing, the ruling party or any other party, but also bringing new innovative ideas which the citizens can potentially buy into?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, when you have absolute power, that is room for corruption, arrogance, and that is where the ANC comes from. I cannot say, I'll be lying if I say there's been no success in the country. There has been success in the country, limited success. However, South Africa is finding itself in a critical situation right now, whether you talk about the economy of this country, whether you talk about high levels of crime, the homelessness, the health sector that is in every aspect. And one of the driving force behind the failures is the high levels of corruption and looting and the policies that we have in place. Now, if a party retains its majority and has an absolute power, it will always remain arrogant and will not be willing to change direction. What South Africa needs right now, and I want to be very clear about this, first of all, we need to ensure that there's no Zionist takeover, because otherwise, starting right now, the city of Cape Town will become the headquarters of the Zionists, like another Palestine, and then they're going to take it everywhere else. So we need to be very careful about that, number one. Number two, what we need is a party, including if it's the Allied the ANC. This is where the Allied Movement for Change comes in. And we must admit that South Africa and coalition governments are here to stay. Right? The days of absolute majority is over. So should there be a need for coalition government, we will go with those like the ANC on condition that on every issue we engage, we come together, we agree before we implement. We hold each other accountable, particularly the larger parties, like in this case, the ANC, who tends to be arrogant when they have that power, to bring them onto the right path to prosperity, to deal with the issues. I can tell you I have simple solutions to many issues, which I know the government and the president himself, whenever he spoke to me outside of the debate, always said to me, I make note of everything and I agree with you, but they won't do anything about it. And this is where we come in. To maintain our Islamic presence in this country, the freedom of religion in this country, but equally in order to make South Africa a better place, hold them accountable, work together with them. So it's not you and me anymore, it's us. And every decision we take must be done together. But if you put all your eggs in one basket, you're running into a very serious risk.
Mr. Munzoor, I have to stop you there. Unfortunately, we have to go for a break, but we will continue this conversation after. Do stay tuned. I'm in conversation with Allied Movement for Change leader Ahmed Munzoor Shaik Emam. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to 2024 elections. My vote, my choice. I'm in conversation with Ahmed Munzoor Shaik Emam. He's the leader of the Allied Movement for Change. Mr. Munzoor, in 1 minute, I had to bring this up because you, of course, were MP when he was the president. Former Jacob Zuma, the Constitutional Court has just ruled that he's not eligible to stand as a candidate. In 1 minute, just your reaction to it.
Well, I think first of all, in terms of the law, I think it's correct. He cannot take office in Parliament. Now, that's the first thing. However, my very serious concern is, given what the court has ruled, what is going to happen, particularly in KZN, where we've heard of threats. My view is that KZN can be a no-go area. There's been various threats before, and it's very unfortunate. But what do we expect? The rule of law must apply equally to everyone. And in this case, the law says that if you have been sentenced to anything more than 12 months imprisonment without an option of a fine, contempt of court is a criminal, right? It must be applied. So it's very unfortunate that we're finding this, but my fear is this, that are they going to accept this? We've already heard of some trucks, a strike that's going to go on
the N3 highway, yes.
Yes, and they're talking about intensifying this next week. Is South Africa going to once again lead to a 2021 unrest? Do we have the capacity to be able to deal with this? These are my concerns. I must be honest with you, but again, I want to say the law must be maintained and it must be equal for everybody.
Mr. Munzoor, let's talk coalition governments. Now, you said it, of course, earlier on that all our eggs need to be in one basket, but the Allied Movement for Change has been quite clear and critical of the Democratic Alliance and some of its multi-party charter members. Now, you know how politics is. You've been there, done that, worn the T-shirt. If there's a situation where the Allied Movement for Change has to work with any of the multi-party charter parties, what then happens?
All right. I think I think the most important question we need to ask, and I know many are not asking this question, and I asked this earlier on to somebody. What if the ANC decides to work with the DA? Because
which is a realistic
there
potential option. Yes,
there is talks that it's taking place, and this I knew about 8 months ago already. And that is what we have to concern ourselves. Where is it actually going to go to? As far as the Allied Movement for Change is concerned, we will not work with the Zionist Democratic Alliance, IFP, ACDP. If that is the case, we will keep our independence and we will maintain our seats and work on based on a day-to-day issue. On the issue of working with the ANC, it's very, very clear. We've made conditions that it is now going to have to change direction. We are not going to govern with them if they're not willing to put the country right. What they've been doing for 30 years means that the country is going to get lost to the Zionists. And in order to protect that and protect our own interests, that means we have to hold them accountable and get them to do right. And that is why I said before, and I'm saying it again, should that need arise, we are going to go back to our leaders, have a discussion, engage on it, on what are exactly, I know the conditions I want to put, and I put some to them already. What conditions we want, this is how we're going to govern together. If not you governing at my expense, because I'm a minority party or a small party. I mean, if you look at that motion on the downgrading, 2017, my brother, they took a resolution. They did nothing about it for 4 years. I had to every year renew, every 3 months renew that thing. They kept giving me excuses.
Oh, to your credit, it was yourself and the EFF that...
No, that one was
yes. I'm talking about the one that recently,
one. Yes,
the removing of the embassy, yes.
Yes, but they could have done it. Yes. They didn't. Every time
well, why do you think that's the case, Mr. Munzoor?
Can I tell you, there's a lack of sincerity in my view. Because
but Naledi Pandor goes around saying that she stands for the people of Palestine. She's a representative of the ANC.
Listen, South Africa, the government of South Africa owes it to the Palestinian people by virtue of what they did for South Africa during the days of liberation. But the question is, take that motion to downgrade. They took it in 2017. Right till 2022, they did nothing about it. I reminded them again. I had to continuously put that motion myself, no other party, until it was my turn, because it's a rotational system. And I pushed it down their throat and they accepted it. Visa-free entry for Palestinians. Why haven't you done it for 31? They were triggered when I interrogated it. I found our people in Palestine were regarded as terrorists, a risk to this country. And what did I do? I went full force with the Home Affairs, with everybody. Alhamdulillah, we got it today. I'm now talking about the issue of refugees. Tell me honestly, my brother, right now as I speak to you, the South Africans fighting in the Israeli Defense Force who have bragged about what they did to our people. And the ANC has promised me, government has promised me in parliament, I've brought it up a few times, they're going to deal with them when they are here. What did you do? Nothing. Those are things you can achieve right now. You can have a targeted approach. I agree that EFF motion with the ANC, which they try to save face and amend, you can't implement because the country is infiltrated to a very large extent. And you can't, it'll shut the country down overnight, I can tell you. However, there are things you can do. So that ICC, even though you got this, it's only going to go so far. Did you notice something? Since we even went to that, things have gone worse right now in Gaza, in Rafah, and all those areas. They're not stopping. They don't respect the rule of law because they get protection.
I clearly agree with you on
they
that.
got protection. Yes. So what are we going to achieve? I make dua, inshallah, that yes, today they arrest that as Zionist Netanyahu. You understand? Yes. But it's not going to happen, you and I know. Not going to happen.
Well, we make dua, inshallah, that justice is brought with regards to that. With regards to the ANC and DA coalition, yes, there are rumors, but I think you and I have to wait, obviously, up until post May 29th to actually see whether that's going to happen. Mr. Munzoor, the coalition governments, I want to talk about you in Gauteng. You've seen Ekurhuleni, city of Johannesburg, and Tshwane chaos, but the residents don't trust the coalition governments to work from a metro's perspective. Or what sort of framework needs to be done if it's going to run on a provincial, let alone just a national level?
I'll tell you what the problem is. Coalition governments are here to stay, but these people are focusing on the money, not on the services to the people. Coalition governments in South Africa are collapsing because the focus is on the money, not on making the lives of people any better. That's where the Allied Movement for Change comes in. The conditions we make, like for example, no politician will have anything to do with procurement and tenders. No politician will have anything to do with the employment or appointment of any office bearers, independent bodies. Keep us out of these things. Keep us out and you'll see there'll be services there. Right now, did you notice something? Some of the coalition partners, they're not wanting a mayor or a deputy mayor or a speaker. They want office bearers, CFOs, directors, municipal managers. That's where the money is. 1.2 billion contract given in a couple of days. Imagine. Has anybody said anything about it? Because these political parties are benefiting from it. So unless you deal with the corruption where you're losing about 500 billion rand a year, starting from local right to the top, you don't deal with that, coalition governments won't work. It'll collapse. Take away the money control from politicians and the control of who to appoint and who to give the job and cadre deployment. And that goes with every political party. They're all doing the same. I promise you got a 95% chance, better chance of coalition governments working. Take that away from us.
We've got 2 minutes, Mr. Munzoor. What are the realistic expectations for AM4C, both on national and provincial? I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
All right, Jazakallah. Listen, we know the situation. We know the weaknesses. We've got solutions. We've said it, and it's in our manifesto, number one. Ethical governance is very important for us and based on Islamic ethos and principles. We have got very credible leaders in different provinces and at national level as well. We've got a lot of expertise. We've got a lot of skills. We are still open to wanting to create an environment to attract the younger generation. I'm only here for 5 more years. And in that 5 years, we want to attract the younger generation, those that got the capacity, the ability, and the integrity on Islamic ethos, to train them, school them, do everything for them to be the future, exactly what the Zionists do. And we've created that environment now to start attracting them. The most important thing, I think, is this, that originally the Allied Movement for Change were looking for 20 seats based on the commitment we had from people that they'll provide us with all the funding, and they all backed out because they said they have to fund the ANC and they'll lose their business. So based on that, I think the AM4C will be satisfied if we have 8 members in national parliament and the legislatures, because we're only contesting Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape, and then national. So from that 20, this is what we're hoping. But I can tell you that even if we get 4 members of parliament, we can make significant contribution in taking South Africa forward. An ideal example is, who would have thought that just with one person you could take on the likes of Israel and downgrade the embassy? One party, small party with one, first in the world. We're able to do it. Get them visa-free entries. We could do it. You know, police officers in this country got an increase for the first time in 31 years on a danger allowance. They were getting a disgraceful thing. One party, one person. So we can do a lot, if you're honest, on condition those smaller parties do not fall into the trap and get swallowed by parties like the ANC and others. You need to be consistent, you need to be independent, and you need to maintain your integrity in the interest of the people.
Mr. Munzoor, Jazakallah so much for joining us here on 2024 elections, and all the best ahead of the elections, inshallah.
Jazakallah. Don't forget, we are number 2 on the national ballot paper, inshallah, AM4C. And we'll appreciate your support so that we can work together. But lastly, I want to say, don't forget to identify and give us those that can take the country forward.
Definitely. Anything for the country to go forward. Mr. Munzoor, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That's Ahmed Munzoor Shaik Emam, the Allied Movement for Change leader. From myself, Faraz Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg, Jazakallah so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.